Got another fly tying supplemental video I'm going to do today. This is on rabbits, working with rabbit strips. And part of the reason is I have an updated video on the Anderson Hammerhead that's going to be coming out next week that was requested. In the process of doing that, because it uses a wrapped rabbit zonker in it, I got to thinking it might be a nice idea to do a supplemental video because a lot of people don't understand rabbit or haven't worked with it that much. But some of the nomenclature is probably the bigger thing about working with rabbit strips. Now, what are rabbit strips? Well, rabbit strips are basically a hide like this that you take and you cut strips out to produce basically a strip. So you've got the hide there and you have the hair running along it in this case. Now, it's fairly easy to make your own strips if you want to. I'll touch on that a little bit later, but mostly you're going to probably buy these commercially done. They're usually cleaner. You can get them with interesting things like this barring on it right here, as well as you can even get whole half skins that they've cut into rabbit strips like this and barred. So you can get a lot of interesting different hair without having to go to the trouble yourself. What I mostly wanted to touch on is that there is a rabbit strip that is used on the Hammerhead that is called basically a Zonker strip, which is different from a rabbit strip that is cut as a cross cut. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at this skin, this is a crawdad orange dyed rabbit. You can see that the hair grows back. The head would have been up here, tail back down this way. The hair grows in a certain direction. It has a certain flow to it. I will refer to it as grain, but you can see where all those hairs pretty much are pointing from the head towards the back. What that means is that if you cut this into strips, long strips this way, then you're going to end up with strips of rabbit like this, where the hair is going in the same direction as the hide, or I should say at least the length of the hide. It's parallel. Yeah, I would say it's more parallel. It runs with the hide. Now, over the years, these have kind of been named Zonker strips. And the reason for that is back in the 70s, when the first Zonker fly was tied, it used a black rabbit strip like this. And I think as time went by, the manufacturers of these things saw that as an opportunity, because it became a very popular fly, to name these Zonker strips so that people would associate this particular strip of rabbit fur with the Zonker fly. At least, if nothing else, they would be able to know, oh, that's the Zonker strip that's used in tying the Zonker fly. However, if, like I said, you've got your hair going this way, if you cut that strip across this way, so in other words, I'm cutting all across this way right here, you end up with what is called a cross cut. What that means is that hide has been cut in such a manner that all the hair comes off of it perpendicular to the actual hide. It's not running lengthwise with the hide, such as this. It's actually running perpendicular to it. Uses for that, generally, if you're tying some sort of a leech pattern or something, or where you're wrapping the rabbit hide and the rabbit zonker onto the hook shank, often you're going to want to use a cross cut like this. The reason is that as I wrap this in, say this is the hook and I'm wrapping from the back to the front, notice as I wrap that around, the hair all naturally lays down in a rearward direction. So you would be covering all of that up and it's naturally going towards the back of the hook. However, if I take a regular rabbit strip and I try to palmer that around, notice that all of the hair sticks out more in a perpendicular direction like this. It doesn't lay down nice and flat going backwards like that. Now, in the Hammerhead video or in the fly, I actually use a Magnum rabbit zonker, and I'll explain what Magnum means in just a second. But I actually wrap that in like this, and I partially over wrap or wrap over the previous to kind of push that down. The reason why I did that is I want this, when this comes to a rest in the water, I want the hair to kind of bounce back out, poof, back out. You may not want that, so therefore maybe the crosscut's going to work for you. But just keep that in mind. Mostly I just wanted to explain in this video how the rabbit skin works. You can get rabbit skins fairly inexpensive, dyed in all kinds of different colors. You can get them white and dye them yourself if you want. You can make your own rabbit strips. It can be rather not difficult, just a little tedious, because the problem is you don't want to just flip this over, slap a ruler down there and just start cutting, because you're going to cut right through that and into the hair, and you're going to hack the hair out. Especially if you're doing a cross cut this way, you're actually going to be cutting across those hairs. You have to somehow anchor this end of the skin. A clipboard is often used. Elevate this part of the skin, and then you can take a single edge razor blade and just kind of punch it right through the skin and come down. And with that elevated off like this, you're going to cut through the skin and push the hair out of the way. So you can make your own. If you're going to do that, I would recommend that you get a ruler and a fine Sharpie. Make your line, try and make your line, because you're going to want to get those as uniform as you can get them. But there again, these are fairly inexpensive, so you're probably better off just buying them from a shop, unless you want to do something special with them. Now, I had mentioned earlier that there's a rabbit strip or a zonker called a Magnum. These are typically cut the normal rabbit, quote, zonker, and I use zonker loosely because these are basically rabbit strips, and then you have a cross-cut rabbit strip where it's cut with it and then it's cut across it, so the hair lays different. But nowadays, rabbit strip and zonker are kind of synonymous. So this is, most of your rabbit strips are cut in a 1/8 inch width. You can get them cut finer than that, but you can also get them cut thicker than that. And that's where you get into what's called a Magnum. And this is a 1/4 inch. So it's basically double. Obviously, you have more hair on it because you're taking off a bigger piece of hide, so you're going to have more hair. But depending on the fly that you're tying, that may work for you a little bit better. The other thing to consider here is that when you go into a fly shop and you're looking for some rabbit strips for, say, a double bunny or a zonker fly or something like that, often you're going to see those labeled as a rabbit zonker. Unfortunately, they'll also label the crosscut strips as a rabbit zonker crosscut. So you got to kind of be careful when you're looking at all the stuff on the wall or on the peg or wherever. You can easily just read rabbit zonker and think that you're getting a strip like this, but you're actually picking up a crosscut. So just look out for that. Now, the other thing, as I mentioned, you can do some interesting things if you decide to make your own rabbit strips. One of them, years ago, I was heading up to Canada doing some pike fishing, and I took a number of skins. This is the black one, and I took a red and a chartreuse and everything, smeared some silicone on the back of it, and then put glitter all over it, and then cut out strips. So these were for pike flies, and they actually were very effective, and they worked pretty good, because as that tail is flopping around in the back, it's grabbing some sunlight and flashing just a little bit. Did they fish better than, non-glitter rabbit strips? I don't know. I didn't try them, non-glitter ones. So, but you can do some interesting things, and there are companies that are already starting to do some of these things that have some rabbit strips that were on the other side. They're doing some interesting things. So that's the supplement. I just wanted to touch on rabbit just a little bit. You can buy these skins and just cut the rabbit fur yourself if you're going to do some dubbing or tails or something. But you can also make your own rabbit zonkers as well as cross cuts. I hope that helps a little bit, and maybe it clarifies a few things for some people. And I hope that it helps your time at the bench just be a little bit more enjoyable. So just remember, it's fly tying. You're not having fun. You're doing it wrong.